What's going on, everybody? C4, welcome back to more C4, where today it's kicking off opening week for the Philadelphia Eagles, for the NFL here in 2022. I think I have 5 videos that are going to be dropping this week on this channel, so stay tuned to this space. We have a lot of things related to Philly ahead of this Week 1 game against Detroit. We'll talk about that Detroit game a little bit later in the week. We'll have our post-game grades. Those are going to be returning. These are going to be all exclusively here. Sometimes they'll be streamed. Sometimes they'll just straight up be a video. But first thing is first, I want to take a step back. Let's look at the Eagles' 2022 schedule. Big picture. Let's throw some predictions out. I will also have another video dropping Thursday. Superlatives. Yeah, I want to talk about the Eagles. Who would I think is going to be the sleeper? Who do I think is going to overperform? Who do I think is going to underperform? Who has a make or break season? I feel like that's a pretty cool concept, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the week. But first things first, you can't really go into a season without really knowing your own expectations for the team. So I want to go through this. Maybe we'll learn some things. Maybe I think the Eagles are going to overachieve. Maybe I think they'll underachieve. I will say right now, kind of like look through, obviously you do a little bit of prep here. Very easy schedule. And for a fan base now, especially with the last edition of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, we got Jalen Reagor off the books. This fan base is absolutely dialed into the fact that Philly is probably the best team in the NFC East, at least on paper right now. And I don't want to say Super Bowl aspirations is the consensus amongst the fan base, but I would like to think that right now, a lot of us are at least optimistic that we should challenge in an NFC that's kind of wide open this season. You have the Rams, you have the Bucks. Yeah, they're probably the best 2 teams in terms of talent, but they're not far and away. It's not like we have to deal with the Buffalo Bills. It's not like we have to deal with the AFC West or anything crazy like that this season. So I think we have a legit shot. So let's take a look. First up, we have Week 1 against the Detroit Lions. And as much as I enjoyed Hard Knocks, that's a game we got to win. I think all the pressure, though, is on Philadelphia in this matchup. I think because our roster looks so good right now, that comes with pressure. Detroit has no pressure. Detroit has no expectations. Maybe there's a slight pressure because they were on Hard Knocks and they got a little bit more buzz this offseason. But I would say, generally speaking, it's the Lions. The Lions are going to go into this you better hope you don't lose to us. That's kind of how Lions are coming into this. And if you're Philly, it's we got all these shiny new tools. We got all these high expectations for Jalen Hurts. And if they don't execute, if they don't look great, it's Detroit. So I feel like there is no gimme game this season for Philadelphia as long as we still have question marks and doubts surrounding our quarterback spot. And all the pressure in this Week 1 game is going to be on the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's a tough thing to have a lot of pressure on your shoulders going into Week 1. Week 1, you want to play loose, you want to play free, you want to play, you want to play good football. And it's tough to play good football when the pressure is on, especially this early. It's not like we've built up those calluses of being able to get out of dicey situations. It's Week 1. This is more of if we panic, if the moment's too big for Philadelphia and we get stuck in neutral, we can't get into first gear and we're slow starters. Maybe there's a turnover or 2. Maybe the drives look a little bit sloppier because we didn't play our starters a whole lot in the preseason. Definitely in comparison to some other teams. I'm just saying, man, this Week 1, I think there's going to be a lot of people that think Detroit, we're going to crush it. I think a lot of pressure is going to be on Philly Week 1. Week 2, I flip-flopped on this. Originally, I had this a win, but sometimes you got to reflect. You got to look big picture. It's do I think Philly's really got to go, 15-2? There's going to be some losses along the way. And I think the Minnesota Vikings they're a sleeper team. I think there's a little bit of a rivalry there between the fan bases after the Super Bowl year. I think, generally speaking, I honestly think Philly can win every game this year. Will they? No. Just don't happen. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be randomness. It could be bad calls. It could be whatever amount of reasons to go throughout the season. But Philly has an incredibly weak schedule. When we play pretty decent teams, they're going to be missing some big-time players. I think there's not one matchup I see where it's that's a L. 100% of the time, that is an L. But there will be some, and if a team can be, I can see Minnesota. They're going to be healthy at this point. You got to assume, Dalvin Cook does have some injuries, but early in the season should be fine. Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson. Of course, they got, who cares about, Adam Thielen? Who cares about Kirk Cousins? They got Jalen Reagor now on the offensive side of the ball. I do think, though, Minnesota's defense, it's a little bit in a purgatory right now. They've been a good defense in terms of talent, but they've underperformed lately. And now you're at that point where it's like, is Harrison Smith still the same kind of guy? Can Daniil Hunter stay healthy? He's a kind of impact playmaker. There's not a lot of young studs on that defense. They get Andrew Booth out of Clemson. I think generally Philly's a better team this year than the Minnesota Vikings, but offensively, Minnesota's going to cause a lot of problems this year. So we'll just say, yeah, there's a chance maybe this game's a shootout, and Kirk Cousins gets the ball last, and they can squeak out a victory. But absolutely, we'll be pulling for Philly to win in that one. We have the Commanders Week 3. This was a tough one, but there's every year, I would say that there's two else that happen to Philly every year that shouldn't happen. That I can't believe that didn't happen. Classic Eagles. How did that happen? I'm going to give Carson Wentz and the Commanders one. I'm going to get, right now, if this happened, this is doom and gloom for the Philadelphia Eagle fan base. After this game happens, if this L happened, I'd make videos being like, Jalen Hurts is not the guy. Can we just fully commit to getting Anthony Richardson? That type of stuff's going to be popping if Philly loses 2 in a row to the Vikings and to the Commanders. But I think we split. It's a little bit spoiler for later on, Week 10. I think we will split our games this year against the Commanders. They are, regardless of Carson Wentz or not, they're still a strong roster. They still have some playmakers. If Carson Wentz can even be somewhat sure. And I almost think it's a cynical side of, at least in one of those games, Carson Wentz won't suck. He won't suck against Philly just because it's Philly. He could suck all 16 other games, but there's going to be one game against Philly where Carson Wentz looks like peak 2017 Wentz. It's going to happen, so we'll just chalk that one up. Week 4, we get to take on Doug Peterson, the Jags. Jags are a team, I kind of view this game like the Detroit Lions game, where in this, the storyline, but the pressure's going to be on Philly in this one. It's going to be Doug with his trying to bounce back, trying to recover this Jags team from the Urban Meyer era. There's not going to be a lot of pressure on them, but this is going to be Philly taking on their ex-head coach. There's going to be there's going to be halftime shows. There's going to be pregame shows talking about the return of Doug P. All this. There's going to be more pressure on Philly than there is Jacksonville, and we haven't seen enough out of this team. Even though we want to be as optimistic as possible, this team can handle pressure. Last time this team got put in a pressure situation, we got absolutely embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So while it's a level of opponent that Philly should, I don't want to say comfortably win, but should win, I think that this game's not a gimme because of the pressure that will be attached to it. But I do think we do win. I think the Jags will be sneaky good. I think Trevor Lawrence looks pretty decent going into year 2 of his career versus what we saw as a rookie. Last year was a shit show. It's not fair for T-Law. I think he's going to look very much like a franchise quarterback this season. Week 5, we have the Cardinals. I'm going to say that's a win. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be missing that game, so that is a massive help, massive break for the Philadelphia Eagles. Last time these two team plays, it was can't-miss game. It was an absolute shooter. It looked like a Big 12 game between Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray. So from a neutral, that will be hopefully 425. The game everyone's watching come supper time. But I think that is a win for Philly with the difference maker. I think kind of close. Cardinals have playoff aspirations as well this season. They just paid Kyler Murray. But I think missing DeAndre Hopkins for sure. Any injury could happen at this point. We know for a fact they will not have DeAndre Hopkins. Give me Philly in that one. Week 6 against Dallas. This one's at the Link. And I don't know, man. In always my predictions, it's like you got to assume that we're probably going to split with Dallas. Right? It's just what happens. I think Philly on paper absolutely stronger than Dallas this year. I know a lot of people, Vegas, all these people still like Dallas. But Philly it always feels like Dallas plays better at Link and Philly plays better at Jerry World. So, spoiler like this Washington game, I have Philly and Dallas splitting the series this year 1-1, and I'll give Dallas the victory at Link because that's probably the most frustrating. Let's just throw that one in there. So then we go to the bye, 3-3. Said you get 500, and I think at this point we're whelmed as a fan base. I think we're seeing Jalen Hurts get a little bit more scrutiny right now. It seems generally there's a sense of at least optimism around Jalen Hurts. And going into this bye, you're gonna be like, well, we're 3-3, and we dropped our 2 divisional games already, which doesn't make you feel too great. We dropped a game against Minnesota that was very winnable, so we're not too sure. But luckily, the schedule out of the bye is pretty nice. So week 8, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are in a transitional year. I mean, by this point, maybe they've moved on to Kenny Pickett. Still kind of surprising with Mitchell Trubisky, especially with how Kenny Pickett looked in the preseason. They got a great defense. They got T.J. Watt. They got Najee Harris. They can run the football. But I really do think, we're two teams going in different directions right now. Pittsburgh, this is their first real year that it's like, all right, we got to move on. Might be a slight rebuild. I don't think it's going to be an all rebuild. They should be competitive, but they're also not. They don't have the same aspirations that the Philadelphia Eagles have this year, and there's a reason why. Offensively, offensive line, quarterback, question marks at wide receiver. Honestly, outside of Deontay Johnson. All I hope is that in this game here, Philly wins and George Pickens doesn't absolutely light us up, because I wanted George Pickens for the Philadelphia Eagles during the draft. Week 9, we got the Houston Texans. It could be a trap game because everyone's just completely writing out the Texans, but we need to be confident enough in our squad that we can go and we can beat the Texans, right? Come on, it's the Texans. They're gonna be hoping that they can get top 2 pick to get C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, whatever. We need to be able to handle business there. Week 10, we have the Commanders, and as I said at the top, we're going to split this year with the Commanders, so Philly right now is rocking a 3-game win streak. We got all that momentum back. We're riding high. We're 6-3. Fans are feeling pretty good. I have an L against the Colts. We'll just say Jonathan Taylor. I'm not worried about Matt Ryan. I'm not overly worried about the passing offense of the Colts, but they have an outstanding run game with Jonathan Taylor. Their defense can cause trouble. They have by this point, right now, I'm pretty sure Shaquille Leonard, he's banged up. Who knows what his availability is going to be early season for the Colts. He could be good to go, but by this point, we're just going to assume he'll be back. And I think the Colts, from an old school defense run the football standpoint, Philly's going to lose. We're not going to win every single game. That could be a tough one for the Eagles. We have Week 12 against Green Bay. And again, these 2 losses in particular go back to the fact that I think Philly can win every game. If you told me Philly beats the Colts, you told me Philly beats the Packers just in a vacuum in those singular games, I'd go, yeah, we could beat the Colts, because I don't think Matt Ryan he's past his prime. Yeah, we could beat the Packers because they got Aaron Rodgers, but they don't got a lot else on that offense. They have good defense. So it could happen, but this is just more so to make a somewhat realistic prediction. There's going to be L's that creep up. Those are 2 strong teams. The 2 of the stronger teams will play. So I will say, though, looking big picture so far at this prediction, it doesn't feel too good that we're beating up on the bad teams and we're losing to the stronger teams, the teams that are more so playoff caliber. And it kind of feels the narrative that we had last year. We made the playoffs last year, but who did we beat? We had all this, you didn't beat anybody below, above 500 and all this stuff. And it's kind of shaping up here in these predictions a little bit. Week 13, a little bit more of a legit win against the Tennessee Titans. The A.J. Brown revenge game. I just think if you could stop the run, which, I'm not 100% sure if we can, as shown by that Colts L. But I think the A.J. Brown revenge game goes in favor of Philadelphia. Week 14, we have the Giants. I think we can sweep the Giants. So we're going to take the dub there. I think Giants are going to be fortunately one. I love what they did with the draft, but you don't have a quarterback, unfortunately. 15 against the Bears, very winnable. One of the worst teams in the NFL on paper going into the season. Justin Fields could strike lightning, but I just don't think they've done enough to build around Justin Fields this year for them to be beating a team of Philadelphia's caliber. Week 16 against Dallas again. This one's in Jerry World. It's on Christmas. I hate that pressure. I absolutely hate the pressure of if Philly loses to Dallas on Christmas Eve, it's going to ruin Christmas. I don't want that. It could happen, but I'm gonna go wishful thinking. We dropped the one in the link. People are going to be all doom and gloomy over that one, but we get the Christmas present. We beat Dallas. That looks good. We got the Saints. You can put the Saints in the same bracket as the Vikings, as the Colts, as the Packers, to the standpoint of okay, for the Saints case, not so much worried about their quarterback, but other than that, they are a playoff caliber team at every other level. So it's just, this could be an L. You could swap out, say Philly could beat the Vikings here, and then there's your L just to throw in to keep the predictions, keep the record somewhat realistic. But I think Jalen Hurts has actually had some of his strongest games against the Saints, so I feel very comfortable that we'll put the dub there. We'll put the dub there, and then we finish up Week 18 with the L because there's nothing to play for. This is. We're our playoff position. We're locked in. We're probably not the 1 seed, but this is something we're the 2 or 3. Doesn't really matter at this point. Let's rest our starters. We can see that is how Sirianni approaches things. I think there's a train of thought that varies from organization to organization of do you play your starters? Do you rest your starters? And some guys just play every single game. That's their old school mentality. You could definitely see Nick Sirianni's the kind of guy, as shown by last year, We'll throw the last game of the season to make sure we're full strength for the playoffs. And I think that is going to be our scenario here. And that is my season prediction for the Eagles. 11-6, which that's, you might disagree. I'll say this. I felt more comfortable with the 11-6 than I did 100% where I placed the wins, where I placed the losses. Obviously, the losses in particular are the tough ones. I think 11-6, though, big picture, is right around where I think the Eagles are going to be. I think worst case scenario, we're 8-9. Best case scenario, I'm not going to say it, but I genuinely think this is a very easy schedule for the Eagles. I think if you're looking at this as a non-Eagle fan, you clicked on this video because you just want to see what I'm saying. Philly, on paper, we are a question mark at quarterback. Every other spot, we are one of the better teams in the NFL. And unlike all the other better teams in the NFL, especially in the NFC, none of them have a schedule this easy. We got the Lions, the Jags. For what it's worth, I don't think they're that bad, but still in the big picture league, no one really respects the Commanders. We got the Commanders twice. We got the Giants twice. We got the Steelers, the Texans, the Titans, who I think a lot of people are a little bit lower on them this year, rightfully so. We have the Bears. This is a very, very easy schedule, all things considered. And if, as long as we don't get absolutely decimated by injuries, I think 10, 11, 12, 13 wins, somewhere in that bubble, is where Philly's going to go. But I would love to hear what you guys think. What do you think Philly's final record is going to be this season? Let me know in the comment section below. Any agreement, any disagreement on any of these game predictions, also let me know. I'm sure if you're a fan of a different team, you're like, oh, no, Saints are going to who day, get out of here. Get out of here. Thanks for Chauncey Gardner Johnson. Hope you enjoyed the 7th round pick. But that'll do it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. We will be back on Thursday with the Eagles superlatives. On Friday will be a Lions preview kind of prediction for that game. And then on Sunday night, it's week 1. I might be chilling with my buddy, so it'll be, probably a little bit later of an upload. We will have our Eagles and Lions post-game grades. And if Philly loses, you're probably not going to want to miss that video. But that'll do it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles 2022 season. And I'll see you back here on the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace out.